Christopher Bell comes through with a big win in the round of 8 at Homestead-Miami Speedway, locks into the championship 4 for the second straight year. We'll talk about it next on NASCAR America Motormouths. Hi, everyone. Marty Snider, Jeff Burton, the mayor, and the professor, Nate Ryan, joining you here today on NASCAR America Motormouths. You know, Jeff, how impressive was the recovery for Christopher Bell and Adam Stevens to get the win at Homestead-Miami Speedway? Because in the middle of stage 2, they were about to go down a lap, and you don't see this happen in this next-gen era with this race car where you can be that far behind and come back and win a race.
I thought it was huge, and it was a monumental moment in the entire year for those guys. You know, you think about the disappointment from last week. They're sitting there leading the race, have a chance to win, come down pit road, getting beaten out of the pits, last lap dash at Larson, can't get it done, and Bell is devastated. And then you go and you follow that up with a horrible run. I mean, you were back there racing to stay in the lead lap, and Christopher Bell very vocal on the radio, and then they flipped the switch. I think the track temp came down. Handling became a little bit easier, and they made the right adjustments. Again, they had a bad pit stop, but this time they were able to overcome it. And I think that's the key, is that this team has had a hard time executing this year, and in a very, very big moment, they found a way to overcome problems on the racetrack, on pit road, and get the win. So this puts win in their sails. This gives them a real positive attitude going into Phoenix, and they are now very dangerous. And they were teetering from being knocked out, and instead they stood up and they knocked the next guy out, and now they have a real shot.
Nate, how much of this credit goes to Adam Stevens and how much of it goes to Christopher Bell?
I probably equally on both sides, Marty, that Christopher Bell, I think, came into this race without a lot of confidence. I mean, we heard that after Las Vegas, where it almost seemed as if he was writing off Homestead. He's like, I just lost to Kyle Larson here, and this was my shot. And, as Jeff mentioned, it was because of the pit stop there. So I think he came in to Homestead-Miami Speedway feeling a little bit like they'd missed their goal, and it opened again. And when it did in that final stage, he seized it, but it didn't come without a lot of adversity. I mean, there was a point in stage 2 where he was running well outside the top 10, and he got a little bit snarky with Adam Stevens.
Here, we need to fight hard, try to stay on this lead lap. Okay, I'll start trying.
Stevens was like telling him, I need you to, keep these spots, don't lose anymore. And even though things were a little bit tense, clearly they figured it out in that final stage. And whatever changes Adam Stevens and the team made in stage 2, they went back on them and they worked in stage 3. And when, again, that window opened, Christopher Bell seized it. And I think that's been a real hallmark of the number 20 team the last 2 years.
So to that point, Nate, I mean, Jeff, if you look at the Miami race for the 20 team, it's almost a microcosm of their year, right? They won the dirt race earlier on. First oval win or first pavement win of the year for Christopher Bell. First win ever for him at a 1.5-mile racetrack. What does it say about this race team that they, after all the issues this year, pit crews, all the things that have happened, good and bad runs in the playoffs, not being able to finish races, what does it say about this team with their continual ability to finish races in big moments?
Well, so I think that's what they haven't believed in themselves, right? I think that if you go back and you look through the year, because look, you can't, you race by race. You don't go back and say, well, a year ago we did this, right? It's what we're doing now. And if you could see it and hear it on Christopher Bell, you could see it on his body language, you could hear it in his voice. He just felt like they had speed, but they couldn't take advantage of it. They were beaten because of things that they weren't executed on. He took the blame for some of it. He blamed the pit crew for some of it. Some of it was cars, right? But the one thing that he was very clear is we can't execute. And they weren't executing. Let's be clear. They haven't been executing. And that's been the problem with this team. It isn't speed, it's execution. And again, they weren't executing, but they found a way to overcome it. And I think that's powerful. I think that going into Phoenix is massive for that team. It's massive for Christopher, because now when things aren't going well, and there are going to be times at Phoenix when they're not going well, you lean back on that. You're like, man, think about what we did 2 weeks ago. Think about that, right? You can't go back and say, well, a year ago, right? It doesn't work like that. And so I just think this gives them a tremendous amount of momentum. Now, again, they can't fall back and they can't come on pit road continually and get beaten. Like they look, they got a break. Denny Hamlin racing Blaney the way he raced him got him away from Blaney. He got a break, right? And they can't continue to get beaten on pit road, because I don't care how lucky you are. I don't care how good you are. It's going to be hard to overcome on a late race restart. And so they're going to have to clean that up. But at least they overcame it. And at least now they know they can do it.
Nate, what do you think about that? I mean, can they overcome these pit stop issues?
Well, I think there's some serious questions there for Joe Gibbs Racing and their pit crews and what's happened during the playoffs and what has continued to happen. Unfortunately, since the 20 teams crew got switched before the playoffs began, clearly that wasn't the be all end all to this. But, you know, to Jeff's point, things broke their way at Homestead-Miami Speedway. I still think that they're a serious threat now to win the championship. I mean, they've already been here before. They can look back at what happened last year. They have that experience from last year at Phoenix. And I think the 20s really established themselves as maybe the biggest clutch performers right now in the Cup Series. When you look at their two back to the wall victories that they had in the 2022 playoffs to advance, and now you look at this one at Homestead-Miami Speedway that, yes, they've had their issues, but when moments have arrived, Christopher Bell has seized them. So I really feel good about this team's chances now for Phoenix.
Does the pit crew issue worry you if you're Adam Stevens, Jeff? Because we have seen in the past pit stops, that final pit stop and the final restart deciding who could be the champion.
Yeah. And it's because, I mean, who are you comparing yourself against? Right? You might have the 7th, 8th best pit crew on the track, but if you're racing against the 1st and 2nd and 3rd, that's not good enough. And we know the 5 car, they are very good. They're one of the highest ranked pit crews on pit road. So yes, this has been a continuing problem, which means it is a problem. It's not a blip on the radar. It is a consistent problem. So yes, I would be very concerned, but I don't know that you're fixing that in 2 weeks. I think it's more coaching. I think it's more emotional. I think if you try to, throw a Hail Mary for pit stops for Phoenix, I think that's a major mistake. I think you got to go in there and give those guys some confidence. Tell them, hey man, just do the best you can. We're gonna win this championship. We know you guys can do it, and hope they do. But I don't see a quick fix coming.
Thanks for watching NASCAR America Motormouths, presented by Toyota.
Hi, I'm Parker Kligerman. For more access like this from Pit Road, be sure to click and subscribe to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube channel.